Ifeanyi and Obiageli sat in the marriage therapist's office, the air heavy with tension. They'd come here as a last try to fix their broken marriage, but it was clear things weren't going well. "I'm done with this marriage, Ifeanyi. I can't do it anymore," Obiageli screamed. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying so much. She glared at her husband, her face full of anger. The therapist tried her best to get them to find some common ground, but they just couldn't stop arguing. Their voices got louder and louder, trying to be heard over the heavy rain pounding on the rusty metal roof of the small office building. The noise was so loud, like a drum being played over and over. The sky outside was pitch black, lit up every few minutes by flashes of thunder. Ifeanyi slammed his hand down on the rickety wooden table. "Then go, Obiageli. No one is forcing you to stay. If you want to leave, leave, but you're taking your bad luck with you." When Ifeanyi said bad luck, he was talking about their 7-year-old daughter, Chizoba. She was sitting outside the main office in the reception area, praying hard for her parents to be a happy family again. She held her knees close to her chest, shaking with fear. Chizoba covered her good ear, trying to block out the shouting coming from the room where her parents were with the therapist. Her other ear couldn't hear any more, not since she fell out of a mango tree 2 years ago and hit her head on a rock. "You think I want her?" Obiageli asked, her voice full of disgust. "She's bad luck. What man is going to marry me with a damaged child?" Chizoba felt her heart shattering into pieces as she heard her mother's cruel words with her one working ear. That child. Her own mother wouldn't even say her name. She was just that child now, an obstacle in the way of her mother's new life. "You carried her in your belly for 9 months, Ifeanyi reminded his wife bitterly. Obiageli let out a harsh, desperate laugh. "So what? I carried bad luck for 9 months then? I gave birth to a cursed child who is going to make me miserable forever? A girl who can't even hear properly. A girl who is dull like you." Chizoba squeezed her eyes shut tighter, wishing with all her might that the awful words would just disappear. She hoped maybe this was all a terrible nightmare and she would wake up soon. The therapist tried to step in, to make them see reason, but they refused to listen. They barged out of the office, their angry shouts echoing through the hallway. They left Chizoba behind, scared and confused. The little girl jumped to her feet and ran after her parents. "Mama! Papa! Where are you going?" Her mother whirled around and yelled at her. "Go to your father, you bad luck! You're nothing but bad luck! Leave me alone, I need to find a better family without you and your totally unlucky father. Don't you ever call me your mother again." With that, she stormed out, leaving Chizoba and Ifeanyi, her father, in the office. Chizoba stepped back, shocked and terrified. Ifeanyi rubbed his forehead, sounding exhausted. "Fine. Just leave her then. She's my problem now." For a brief moment, Chizoba felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Papa would let her go with him. Maybe he wouldn't send her away. But when Ifeanyi turned to look at his daughter, his eyes were like ice. The hope vanished as quickly as it had come. "Chizoba, from today, you are not my daughter anymore. Go look for your mother." The reception area seemed to spin around her. Chizoba couldn't breathe. This couldn't be real. It had to be some mistake. "No, Papa, please no." She ran to him, throwing her arms around his legs. "I'll be good, I promise." Ifeanyi pushed her away. His face was hard as stone. "Don't touch me. Your mother doesn't want you. I don't want you. Go." Sobbing, Chizoba reached for him again. "Papa, please, don't do this. Don't leave me." She clutched at his pants with her small hands. Her father shoved her roughly away. "I told you not to touch me," Ifeanyi shouted. He yanked his trouser leg out of Chizoba's grip. Without another word, he turned and walked out into the rainy night. "Papa?" Chizoba whispered through her tears, reaching out for him one last time. But Ifeanyi just grabbed his car keys and followed his wife out the door. It slammed shut with a harsh, final bang. He ran out into the pouring rain and got into his car, slamming the door. The engine roared to life and he sped off, spraying water everywhere. Her mother had already driven away. Chizoba dashed out into the parking lot, instantly soaked by the downpour. "Mama, Papa, come back!" she screamed, but her voice was swallowed by a crash of thunder. She started to cry, standing there all alone as the rain beat down on her, plastering her hair to her head and running into her eyes. She was lost, with no idea what to do. She walked back to the entrance of the therapist's office and sat down, burying her face in her knees as she wept. The heavy rain splashed around her, soaking her even more, but she didn't care. She just sat there, alone, as the storm raged on. Hours passed as the night deepened, and the therapist and receptionist finished their work for the day, unaware of the small child crouched in the shadows. As they were about to leave, the receptionist turned to lock up, when something in the dim light caught her eye. A small figure curled up near the entrance. Stepping closer, she realized it was Chizoba. The child sat hunched over, her head buried between her knees, her tiny frame trembling with quiet sobs. Her clothes were soaked, clinging to her frail body as she shivered in the cold. A flicker of concern crossed the receptionist's face, but it was quickly replaced by impatience. "Shoo! Go on, get out of here!" the woman snapped, waving her arms dismissively. Frightened, Chizoba scrambled to her feet, her small hands slipping in the mud as she tried to steady herself. The harshness of the woman's voice stung more than the cold rain. Shaking from both cold and shock, she stumbled away, her bare feet squelching in the wet ground. She found her way to a tree near the building, curling up beneath its branches. It offered little shelter from the downpour, but it was the only place she had. The rain continued to lash against her small body, each drop chilling her further as she hugged herself for warmth, alone in the dark night. 3 hours later, the streets grew empty. Chizoba was drenched to the bone, shivering uncontrollably and utterly heartbroken. She found an alley behind some shops and curled up next to a dumpster, trying desperately to get warm. Suddenly, rough hands grabbed at her. A group of thugs had seen the helpless little girl, an easy target. They started to grope at her, trying to force themselves on her. Chizoba screamed in sheer terror, "Help! Somebody help me!" Just then, a figure came running into the alley. It was Mama Uju, the kind woman who sold akara on the roadside. She was walking home after a long day where she had been selling her wares. "Get away from that child!" Mama Uju shouted at the four men, brandishing her heavy basket. Startled, the thugs ran off into the night. Mama Uju knelt down next to Chizoba in the rain. The girl was shaking like a leaf and sobbing uncontrollably. "Don't cry, little one. You're safe now," she said softly. The compassionate woman took off her own threadbare shawl and wrapped it snugly around Chizoba. Then she helped the girl to her feet. "Come home with me," Mama Uju said gently. "I don't have much, but I have a fire to warm you up and some food to fill your belly." Too exhausted and traumatized to refuse, Chizoba let Mama Uju lead her away, out of the freezing rain and into an uncertain future. But for the first time all night, she didn't feel quite so alone. As they walked, Chizoba couldn't stop shaking, both from cold and shock. Her teeth chattered and her whole body ached. But Mama Uju's arm around her shoulders was warm and comforting. "What's your name, child?" Mama Uju asked softly. Chizoba," the girl stammered out, her voice hoarse from crying. "Chizoba, that's a beautiful name," Mama Uju said with a kind smile. "How old are you, Chizoba?" 7, Chizoba whispered. Mama Uju's heart broke. So young to be out on the streets all alone. "Where are your parents, little one? Why were you out there by yourself?" At the mention of her parents, Chizoba started to cry again, great heaving sobs that shook her small frame. They don't want me anymore," she managed to say between gasps. "They said I'm bad luck. They left me." Mama Uju stopped walking and turned to face the distraught girl. She placed her hands gently on Chizoba's thin shoulders. "Listen to me, Chizoba. You are not bad luck. You are a precious child of God. Your parents were wrong to leave you, so very wrong." Chizoba looked up at her with wide, tear-filled eyes. No one had ever said such things to her before. You don't think I'm bad luck?" "No, child. I think you're a brave, strong girl who has been through far too much. But you're safe now. I'll take care of you," Mama Uju promised. A tiny flicker of hope sparked to life in Chizoba's chest. She threw her arms around Mama Uju, clinging to her tightly, as if afraid she might disappear. Mama Uju held the girl close, stroking her wet hair. Shh, it's all right. I've got you. I won't let anything bad happen to you, Chizoba. You're not alone anymore. Chizoba buried her face in Mama Uju's shoulder, her tears soaking into the already damp fabric. But for the first time in hours, they were tears of relief, not despair. They stayed like that for a long moment, the rain pouring down around them. Then Mama Uju gently disentangled herself and took Chizoba's hand. Come on, let's get you out of this rain and into some dry clothes. My house is just up ahead. Chizoba held on tightly to Mama Uju's hand as they started walking again. She still couldn't quite believe this was real, that someone actually wanted her, even after all that had happened. Thank you, she whispered, so softly Mama Uju almost didn't hear it over the rain. Thank you for saving me. Mama Uju squeezed her hand. You don't have to thank me, Chizoba. No child should ever be left alone like that. I'm just glad I found you when I did. Chizoba managed a small, watery smile. It was the first time she had smiled in longer than she could remember. As they walked through the rainy streets, Chizoba's exhaustion started to catch up with her. She stumbled, her legs feeling like jelly. Without a word, Mama Uju scooped her up, settling the girl on her hip as if she weighed nothing at all. Chizoba wrapped her arms around Mama Uju's neck and laid her head on her shoulder. She was so tired, and Mama Uju was so warm. Her eyes started to drift shut. Before she knew it, they were stepping into Mama Uju's small, tidy house. The warmth enveloped Chizoba like a hug, making her realize just how cold she had been. Mama Uju's house was small and old. The walls were made of wood that had seen better days, and the roof was rusty zinc. Inside, there was just one room. A small table stood in the corner, and the kitchen was nothing more than a charcoal stove. But to Chizoba, it felt like a palace. It was warm and safe, and that was all that mattered. Mama Uju set her down gently. Let's get you out of those wet clothes and into something dry, okay? Chizoba just nodded, too tired to speak. Mama Uju helped her change into a soft, worn nightdress that smelled like sunshine and soap. Then she sat Chizoba down by the little hearth, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Mama Uju didn't ask Chizoba a lot of questions. She could see the pain in the little girl's eyes, and she knew that what Chizoba needed most was love and care. You sit right here and warm up, child. I'll make you something hot to eat, Mama Uju said, bustling over to the small kitchen area. Chizoba sat quietly, watching the flames dance in the hearth. The heat seeped into her bones, chasing away the deep chill. She felt her eyelids growing heavy, so she made her a plate of hot akara and pap. Then Mama Uju was pressing a steaming bowl of pap and akara into her hands. Here, eat up. This will help warm you from the inside out. Chizoba ate slowly, savoring each bite. It was the best thing she had ever tasted. She felt the warmth of the food spreading through her body. For the first time that terrible night, she started to feel a little bit safe. She looked up at Mama Uju with gratitude shining in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for helping me. Mama Uju smiled and reached out to stroke Chizoba's hair. You're welcome, child. You can stay here with me for as long as you need. Chizoba felt tears welling up in her eyes. She hadn't expected such kindness, not after what her own parents had done. But why? Why are you being so nice to me? Mama Uju's smile turned sad. Because I know what it's like to be alone in this world, and no child should ever have to feel that way. She pulled Chizoba into a hug, and the little girl clung to her tightly. For a long moment, they just held each other, taking comfort in the simple human contact. Mama Uju watched her with a gentle smile. When Chizoba's head started to nod, she took the empty bowl and set it aside. Looks like someone's ready for bed, she said softly. She laid out a small mat for her to sleep on and helped Chizoba to her feet and guided her over to the small mat in the corner. As Chizoba lay down, Mama Uju tucked the blanket snugly around her. Then, to Chizoba's surprise, she leaned down and placed a soft kiss on her forehead. Sleep well, little one. You're safe here, Mama Uju whispered. Chizoba's eyes fluttered closed. a single tear slipping down her cheek. But for the first time in a very long time, it was a tear of happiness, not sorrow. Life with Mama Uju wasn't easy though. The older woman was poor, and the little money she made from selling akara was barely enough to feed one person, let alone two. There were days when they went to bed with their bellies half empty, and others when they couldn't afford to light the stove. But through it all, Mama Uju never complained. She never made Chizoba feel like a burden. Instead, she would pull the girl close and whisper, "You are my daughter now. I may not have much money, but I have plenty of love." And for a while, that love was enough. Chizoba started to heal, started to feel like maybe she could have a future after all. But the world outside their little house was not so kind. As Chizoba grew, people started to whisper about her. "That girl, she's deaf in one ear," they would say, shaking their heads. "She won't amount to much. And she has no real family," others would murmur. Who would want to marry a girl like that? Even the neighbors, who had known Chizoba since she was small, started to doubt her. One day, a woman pulled Mama Uju aside. "You should just teach her a trade," she said, nodding towards Chizoba. "That one, she's not meant for school. It would be a waste of your money." Mama Uju listened patiently, but there was a fire burning in her eyes. When the neighbor was done talking, Mama Uju drew herself up to her full height. "Chizoba will go to school," she said, her voice firm and unwavering. "She will learn to read and write, and she will be great. I believe in her, even if no one else does." The neighbor shook her head and walked away, but Mama Uju wasn't bothered. She turned to Chizoba, who had been listening from the doorway. "Don't you listen to them, child," she said, pulling Chizoba into a hug. "You are smart and capable, and you can do anything you set your mind to. I know it." Chizoba hugged her back, feeling a warmth blooming in her chest. "Do you really think so, Mama?" "I know so," Mama Uju said, tapping Chizoba's nose playfully. "You're going to prove them all wrong, just you wait and see." From that day on, Chizoba held her head a little higher. She studied hard, even when the other children made fun of her. She helped Mama Uju with the akara, even when her arms ached from stirring the batter. She was determined to make something of herself, to show the world that she was more than just a deaf girl with no family. And every night, as she lay down to sleep on her little mat, Chizoba would think of Mama Uju's words. "You are my daughter now," she would whisper to herself, "and I am going to make you proud." She was no longer the scared, broken little girl she had been that rainy night. She was Chizoba, daughter of Mama Uju, and she was going to be great. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Life with Mama Uju was not easy, but Chizoba was grateful for her new home. Mama Uju worked hard selling akara, but the money she made was barely enough for one person, let alone two. Many nights, they only had a single meal to share between them. Chizoba learned to be resourceful. She drank lots of water before bed to quiet her growling stomach. She carefully washed and mended her single tattered school uniform, hanging it to dry by the fire each night so it would be ready in the morning. She never complained or asked for treats, even when she saw the other village children enjoying sweets and biscuits. She knew Mama Uju couldn't afford such luxuries. Instead, Chizoba focused on her studies. She understood that education was her best chance at a better life. "School is important, Chizoba," Mama Uju would say, her face serious but kind. "It's how you'll make something of yourself. Keep studying hard, and you'll go far." Chizoba took those words to heart. Every evening she did her homework by the light of the fire, reading until the words blurred before her eyes. The other children sometimes teased her about her patched uniform and her second-hand books, but Chizoba didn't let it bother her. She knew what mattered was the knowledge in her head, not the clothes on her back. And so, the weeks turned into months, and the months into years. And with each passing day, Chizoba grew a little taller, a little wiser, and a little closer to the future she dreamed of. Chizoba loved going to school, but it wasn't always a happy place for her. The other children were mean to her every single day. One boy always made fun of her ears. "Hey, big ears!" he would shout. "Can you hear me with those? Or are you deaf in the other one too?" He would laugh loudly, and some of the other kids would join in. The girls were just as cruel. "Why do you even bother coming to school?" they would ask, giggling behind their hands. "It's not like you'll ever find a husband. You should just stay home and learn to fry a kara like your mother." Their words hurt Chizoba deeply, but she tried not to let it show. She held her head high and ignored them as best she could. But it wasn't just the students who were unkind. Even some of the teachers didn't believe in her. One day after class, one of the teachers called Chizoba to her desk. "Listen, Chizoba," she said, her voice not mean but not kind either. "You come from a very poor family. You're deaf in one ear and you don't have parents to support you. Even if you manage to pass your exams, who's going to pay for you to go to university?" Chizoba felt like she'd been slapped. She stared at the teacher, trying hard not to cry. I will find a way," she whispered. The teacher sighed. "I'm just trying to be realistic, child. Don't set your hopes too high, or you'll only be disappointed." Chizoba ran home from school that day, her vision blurred with tears. As soon as she got to the little room she shared with Mama Uju, she threw herself onto her mat and sobbed into her thin pillow. The pain and humiliation washed over her in waves. She wanted to scream at the injustice of it all. She wanted to march up to those cruel children and uncaring teachers and fight back, to make them see that she was more than her circumstances. But she was just a little girl, and they were bigger, louder, and meaner than her. So she didn't scream, she didn't fight. Instead, she did something much braver. She jumped up from her mat and wiped away her tears, sat up straight, and reached for her school books. If they thought she wasn't good enough, she would prove them wrong. If they believed she couldn't succeed, she would show them just how determined she could be. She opened her books and started to read, the words blurring before her eyes. She would study harder than anyone. She would learn everything she could. She would ace her exams and earn her place in university, no matter what anyone said. And she would do it not just for herself, but for Mama Uju, who believed in her even when no one else did. Chizoba read late into the night, the flickering firelight her only companion. She read until her eyes burned and her head ached. But she didn't stop, because with every page turned, with every fact learned, she was taking a step closer to her dreams. She was proving to herself and to the world that she was worth something. The road ahead would be hard. There would be more mockery, more doubts, more obstacles. But Chizoba was ready to face them all. She had the strongest weapon of all, knowledge, and she would wield it like a warrior, fighting for her place in the world. Let them laugh, let them sneer, let them tell her she would never be enough. She would show them all. Chizoba, the little girl with the big ears and the broken family, was going to be somebody. She was going to touch the stars. And it all started here, on this thin mat, with these tattered books. This was her battleground. This was where she would forge her future. So she read on, her heart full of quiet fire. And with each word, each lesson, each tiny victory, she grew stronger, braver, and more determined. She was Chizoba. She was a fighter, and she would not be defeated. Some years later, Chizoba had grown into a young girl in JSS 3. One quiet evening, Mama Uju called her into their tiny hut. The old woman's face was serious as she took Chizoba's hands in hers. "Chizoba, my child," Mama Uju said softly, "it's time to pay your school fees again." Chizoba felt her heart sink. She knew how hard it was for Mama Uju to come up with the money every term, but somehow the old woman always managed. Do we have enough?" Chizoba asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mama Uju gave her a sad smile. "Don't you worry about that. I will find a way. I always do." Chizoba nodded, trying to be brave, but inside, she felt terrible. She hated that Mama Uju had to struggle so much just to keep her in school. That night, Chizoba couldn't sleep. Her mind was too full of worries. She tossed and turned on her mat, trying to get comfortable. Suddenly, she heard voices outside. Quiet but urgent. Curious, Chizoba crept to the door and peeked out. What she saw made her heart shatter. Mama Uju was kneeling in the dirt in front of Mr. Okafor, one of the wealthiest men in the village. She was begging him for a loan. "Please, sir," Mama Uju said, her voice shaking but determined. "I need money for Chizoba's school fees. She's such a bright girl. I know she will do great things one day." Mr. Okafor laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. "Uju, why are you bothering with this? Wasting your money on school for a girl? It's foolish." Mama Uju looked up at him, her eyes fiery. "It is not foolish. I believe in her. She will make me proud, you'll see." The man shook his head. "Fine, I'll give you the loan, but if you can't pay me back, you'll have to work on my farm for a whole year to cover the debt. Understood?" Chizoba watched, hardly daring to breathe, as Mama Uju hesitated. A year of hard labor was a huge price to pay. But finally the old woman nodded. "I understand. Thank you, sir. I will pay you back, I swear it." As Mr. Okafor walked away, Chizoba ducked back inside, her heart pounding. She bit her lip hard, trying not to cry. Mama Uju was sacrificing so much for her. The old woman was ready to sell her own sweat and labor just to keep Chizoba in school. Chizoba felt a fierce rush of love and determination. She wouldn't let Mama Uju down. She couldn't, not after everything the woman had done for her. She crept back to her mat and lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. Her mind was racing. She would study harder than ever. She would get the best grades, win every prize. She would make Mama Uju proud. "I won't waste this chance, Mama," Chizoba whispered into the darkness. "I'll make something of myself. I'll make all your sacrifices worth it." She finally fell asleep as the first light of dawn crept into the hut. Her dreams full of hope and fierce, unshakable resolve. Chizoba worked harder than anyone else in school. She studied late into the night, every night. She asked questions in class, even when the other students laughed at her. She never gave up, no matter how tough things got. And it paid off. By the time she reached SS3, everyone knew Chizoba was the smartest student in the whole school. The same teachers who used to say she would never amount to anything now couldn't stop praising her. "Chizoba is a real credit to this school," they would say, smiling at her with pride. The villagers who had once looked at her with pity or scorn now watched her with admiration. "That girl, she's going places," they would whisper to each other. "She's special, that one." Even the people who had said she would never go far in life were starting to change their tune. "Maybe we were wrong about her," they murmured. "She just might surprise us all." But no one, not even Chizoba herself, was prepared for what came next. One day it was announced that the national exams would be held soon. These exams were a big deal. They could open doors to a brighter future for those who did well. Chizoba's school chose her to represent them. She was, after all, the best student they had. So Chizoba traveled to the big city to take the exams. She was nervous, but also excited. This was her chance to prove herself on a bigger stage. The exams were tough, but Chizoba gave it her all. She poured everything she had learned, all the knowledge she had worked so hard to gain, into her answers. Then, it was over. All she could do was wait for the results. The day the national exam results were announced, the whole village held its breath. These exams were the key to a brighter future, a chance at a better life. And when the news came, it was like a bombshell. Chizoba hadn't just passed. She hadn't just done well. She had scored the highest marks in the entire country. She'd won a scholarship to study abroad and a cash prize of millions of naira. The deaf girl from the little village had outperformed every other student in Nigeria. Word of her achievement spread like a grass fire in Hamatan. Soon, the whole country was talking about the brilliant girl who had overcome so many odds. Newspapers printed her story on their front pages. Television stations clamored for interviews. Government officials invited her to fancy dinners and ceremonies. Overnight, Chizoba had become a national hero, a symbol of what hard work and determination could achieve. She should have been on top of the world, and for a moment she was. When she returned to the village, everyone wanted to shake her hand, to congratulate her. Mama Uju hugged her so tight, crying tears of joy and pride. "You did it, my girl," she kept saying, her face glowing with happiness. "You showed them all I knew you would." Chizoba hugged her back, feeling like her heart might burst. Everything she had worked for, all the years of struggle and sacrifice, had led to this moment. She basked in her triumph. But just when she thought she had won, her past came knocking again. Chizoba was in the middle of an interview with a big newspaper when she heard a commotion outside. Curious, she excused herself and went to see what was happening. And there, standing close to her fancy car in the middle of the village square, was her mother, her birth mother. The woman who had abandoned her all those years ago was back, dressed in fine clothes and dripping with gold jewelry. Chizoba's heart nearly stopped when she realized who it was. Obiageli, her birth mother. "Chizoba, my daughter!" Obiageli cried out, holding her arms wide open. "My precious girl!" The villagers all gasped in shock. They knew Chizoba's story. They knew this was the woman who had abandoned her so many years ago. Chizoba didn't move. She just stood there, staring at the woman who had given birth to her, then tossed her aside. Obiageli walked up to Chizoba and grabbed her hands. "Look at you. You've made me so proud," she said loudly so everyone could hear. "You've brought such honor to my name." My name, Chizoba thought. Not our name, her name. She pulled her hands away from Obiageli's grasp. "You left me," Chizoba said, her voice as cold as ice. "You threw me away like I was nothing." Obiageli looked surprised. "That's all in the past," she said, waving her hand like she could just erase what she'd done. "Come home with me now. I want to take you home." Chizoba couldn't believe what she was hearing. This woman, this stranger, had the nerve to come here and act like nothing had happened, like she could just claim Chizoba now that she was famous. The pain of it all was almost too much to bear. But when Chizoba spoke, her voice was steady and strong. "My family is here," she said, looking around at the villagers, at Mama Oju. "I already have a mother, a real mother who loves me." Obiageli's fake smile froze on her face. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice getting hard. Chizoba looked her right in the eye. "I'm saying that I don't need you. I don't want you in my life." The villagers started to murmur and whisper to each other. They had never seen anything like this before. Obiageli's face twisted in anger. "You ungrateful brat," she hissed. "How dare you talk to me like that? I am your mother. You can't deny your own blood." But Chizoba wasn't scared of her anymore. She lifted her chin proudly. "Blood means nothing without love," she said. "And you never loved me. Mama Uju, she's my real family. She's the one who was there for me when you weren't." With those words, Chizoba turned her back on Obiageli and walked away. She went straight to Mama Uju and hugged her tight. Obiageli just stood there, her mouth hanging open. She looked around at the villagers, but they were all glaring at her. She had come here thinking she could take credit for Chizoba's success. She thought her money and her fancy clothes would make people forget what she had done. But she was wrong. The people here remembered, and they knew who Chizoba's real family was. Obiageli got back in her big jeep and drove away, her face burning with shame. She had thought Chizoba would jump at the chance to have a rich, important mother. But she had underestimated her daughter. Chizoba was stronger than Obiageli had ever been. She knew what really mattered in life. As the dust from the jeep's wheels settled, Chizoba turned to Mama Uju. "Thank you," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for being my mother when she wasn't." Mama Uju hugged her close. "I will always be your mother, Chizoba, no matter what. You are my daughter in every way that matters." Chizoba smiled through her tears. She had lost her birth mother a long time ago. But she had found a true mother in Mama Uju, and that was worth more than all the gold and lace in the world. Just 2 days after Obiageli left the village in shame, another car drove into town. Chizoba was hanging up laundry outside Mama Uju's hut when she saw who got out of the car. It was Ifeanyi, her father. He walked over to her with a smile on his face, but it didn't seem real. It didn't reach his eyes. "Ah, my daughter," he said, his voice smooth like oil. "I've come to see you." Chizoba gripped the wet red shirt in her hands tightly. She could feel anger and hurt bubbling up inside her. "You threw me away and called me bad luck," she said, trying to keep her voice from shaking. "And now that I'm successful, you suddenly want me back." Ifeanyi's fake smile slipped a little. He looked annoyed. "You're still my blood, Chizoba. It's your duty to take care of your father in his old age." Chizoba couldn't believe what she was hearing. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. It was a bitter sound. "Duty?" she repeated. "You abandoned me when I needed you most. You have no right to talk about duty." Ifeanyi sighed heavily, like he was tired of this conversation already. "Let's not dwell on the past, eh? That's all behind us now." Chizoba shook her head. She turned and looked at Mama Uju, who was standing nearby. The old woman had been watching the whole thing, her face serious. "This woman," Chizoba said, pointing to Mama Uju, "she is my real parent. She's the one who took me in, who raised me, who loved me, not you." Ifeanyi's face twisted in anger. He took a step towards Chizoba. "Don't be foolish, girl," he snapped. "You think this poor old woman can give you the life you deserve? You need a real family, a father who can provide for you." But Chizoba wasn't scared of him anymore. She stood tall and looked him right in the eye. "I already have a real family," she said calmly but firmly. "Mama Uju is all the family I need. I don't want anything from you." Ifeanyi's face turned red. He looked like he wanted to shout, to grab Chizoba and shake her, but Chizoba wasn't a little girl anymore. She was a young woman now, strong and sure of herself. She turned her back on Ifeanyi and walked over to Mama Uju. The old woman put her arm around Chizoba's shoulders. "You heard my daughter," Mama Uju said to Ifeanyi. "She's made her choice. Now I think it's time for you to leave." For a moment, it looked like Ifeanyi might argue. But then he seemed to realize that he had lost. He had thrown away his chance to be a father a long time ago. Without another word, he turned and stalked back to his car. The engine roared to life and he drove away, kicking up a cloud of dust. Chizoba watched him go, feeling a mix of emotions. There was still some pain there, some anger at what he had done. But there was also relief and a sense of closure. She turned to Mama Uju and hugged her tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being here for me, always." Mama Uju hugged her back just as tightly. "I will always be here for you, my child. You are the daughter of my heart, if not my blood, and that will never change." After Chizoba told her father to leave, the whole village couldn't stop talking about it. Everyone had an opinion. Some people supported Chizoba. They said she was right to stand up for herself. Mama Nkechi, the tailor, was one of those people. She spoke up loudly when she heard others gossiping. "That girl owes her parents nothing," she said firmly. "Where were they when she was going hungry, huh? When she had to sleep on the floor with no blanket? They didn't care about her then, so why should she care about them now?" But others disagreed. They thought Chizoba should forgive her parents, no matter what. One man at the village square shook his head when he heard what had happened. "Blood is blood," he said. "No matter what, they're still her mother and father. She should find a way to forgive them." Even the village chief got involved. He was a very old and wise man, and everyone respected him. One day, he sent for Chizoba. She went to his hut, feeling nervous. The chief looked at her with kind eyes. "My child," he said gently, "I know you have suffered a great deal, but the wisest people are those who learn to let go of the past." Chizoba felt her chest get tight. She knew what the chief was trying to say, what everyone wanted her to do. They wanted her to forget, to act like everything was okay now, to let her parents back into her life just because she was successful. But Chizoba couldn't do that, not after everything she'd been through. She remembered all the nights she cried herself to sleep, feeling so alone and unloved. She remembered all the mornings she woke up feeling like she didn't matter to anyone. Those memories were a part of her. They had made her who she was, and she wouldn't let anyone erase them. She looked at the chief and spoke calmly and clearly. "I have forgiven my parents," she said. "In my heart, I wish them no ill will, but I will never forget what they did. I can't forget. It's part of my story." The chief looked at her for a long moment. Then, to Chizoba's surprise, he smiled. "You are wise beyond your years, my child," he said. "Forgiveness does not always mean forgetting. You have found the strength to move forward, but you also honor your past. That is true wisdom. Chizoba felt tears prick at her eyes. She hadn't expected the chief to understand. "Thank you," she whispered. The chief reached out and patted her hand. "Keep walking your path, Chizoba. It is a good one, even if it has been hard at times. And know that your village is proud of you no matter what anyone says." Chizoba left the chief's hut, feeling lighter than she had in days. She knew not everyone would understand her choice, but she also knew, deep in her heart, that it was the right one for her. 1 week after Chizoba's talk with the chief, a fancy black SUV drove into Umwagu village. It looked so out of place on the dusty roads. 3 men got out of the car. They were wearing suits that looked like they had just been ironed. Everything about them was neat and perfect. The men had come all the way from Abuja, the capital city. They said they were from the Federal Ministry of Education, and they were looking for Chizoba. Word spread fast in the village. Soon everyone had gathered around the men, curious and excited. Someone went to get Chizoba from Mama Uju's house. When she arrived, one of the men smiled at her and shook her hand. "Miss Chizoba," he said, sounding very formal and respectful, "we have some wonderful news. The federal government wants to give you a full scholarship to study in a foreign country." The whole crowd gasped. Chizoba felt like her heart had stopped beating. Mama Uju was standing next to her. Chizoba felt the old woman's hand tighten around hers. The man kept talking. "You will get to study at one of the best universities in the world," he said, "and the government will pay for everything." Chizoba took a deep breath. This was all happening so fast. The scholarship, the chance to study abroad. This was everything she had ever wanted. It was everything she had ever dreamed of, prayed for, worked so hard for. And now, it was actually happening. But something didn't feel right. Chizoba looked around at her village, at the place that had become her home. She saw the little kids running around with no shoes on their feet. She saw the old women carrying heavy loads on their backs, and she thought about all the other kids like her, children that everyone else had already decided weren't worth anything. Kids who had dreams too. Then Chizoba looked at Mama Uju, the woman who had saved her, who had loved her when no one else did. Mama Uju's eyes were shining with pride, but Chizoba could also see fear in them. And suddenly, she understood why. If she left, if she went to study abroad, who would be here for the people she loved? Who would help the other girls like her? Chizoba's heart felt heavy. She had always wanted to see the world, to learn everything she could. But she also knew that her place was here. Her people needed her. She turned to the man from the government. "Sir," she said, her voice shaking a little, "I am so grateful for this opportunity. It means more than I can say." The man smiled. "We look forward to having you join us, Miss Chizoba," clearly expecting her to accept on the spot. She turned to the government official. "Sir, I am deeply honored by this offer. Truly it means the world to me." The man smiled, but Chizoba surprised everyone with what she said next. "But please, can I have some time to think about it? To discuss it with my mother? This is a big decision, and I want to be sure it's the right one." The official looked taken aback. The villagers started to murmur amongst themselves. Chizoba could feel their disappointment, their confusion. They had all assumed she would jump at this chance, that she would be on the next plane out of the village. But Chizoba knew she needed to follow her heart, and right now, her heart was telling her to pause, to reflect. Mama Uju stepped forward, putting a supportive hand on Chizoba's shoulder. "My daughter is wise to consider this carefully," she said, her voice firm. "This is her future, and she should decide it for herself, in her own time." The government man, though clearly surprised, nodded in understanding. "Of course, Miss Chizoba. Take the time you need. This offer will remain open to you." With that, the officials got back into their SUV and drove off, leaving a cloud of dust and a village full of stunned faces behind. Chizoba could feel the weight of their expectations, their disappointment, but she also felt the rightness of her choice. She turned to Mama Uju, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry if I let them down, Mama, but I have to do what feels right to me." Mama Uju hugged her close. "You could never let us down, my child. You make me proud every single day, no matter what you choose, and I will support you, always." Chizoba clung to her, drawing strength from the old woman's unwavering love. She knew she had a hard decision ahead of her, but she also knew that whatever she chose, she would have Mama Uju by her side. And for now, that was enough, more than enough. As the village slowly dispersed, some grumbling, some whispering words of support, Chizoba and Mama Uju walked hand in hand back to their little hut. They had a lot to talk about, a lot to consider, but they would do it together, as they had done everything else. That night, the whole village had a big party. Everyone was so happy for Chizoba. The women were dancing and singing. The men were drinking palm wine and laughing. They all thought they knew what Chizoba would say. Of course, she would take the scholarship and go study abroad. Who wouldn't? But the next morning, when everyone gathered in the village square, Chizoba surprised them all. She stood up tall and spoke in a clear, strong voice. "I am so thankful for this chance," she said, "but I have made up my mind." Everyone leaned in closer, waiting to hear what she would say. "I will not go to a foreign country," Chizoba said. For a moment there was complete silence. You could have heard a leaf drop. Then someone laughed a little. "She's just joking around," a man whispered to his friend. But Chizoba wasn't joking at all. She looked at everyone, her chin held high. "I'm going to stay right here in Nigeria," Chizoba said firmly, her eyes shining with determination. "I will go to the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, and the money I won should be used to develop the community so that this place can become better, especially for the children who need care and support." The whole crowd started talking at once. They couldn't believe it. Some of them seemed shocked. Others almost looked angry. Even the government officials looked confused. "But Chizoba," one of them said, "this is a chance that most people never get. It could change your whole life." Chizoba nodded. "I know that, sir, and I am truly grateful. But I was left behind once. I was forgotten once, and I won't do that to my people here." She turned and looked at all the little kids in the village, the ones who were just like she used to be. "I am staying," she said again, "and I am going to build something here, something that will help children like me, so they never feel forgotten again." Mama Uju started crying when she heard that. They were tears of pride and love. The officials didn't know what to say. They had never had someone say no to an offer like this before, but in the end, they had to respect Chizoba's choice. They shook her hand and told her she was a remarkable young woman, and just like that, it was decided. Chizoba was going to stay in her village, with her people. Some folks weren't too happy about it. They thought she was making a big mistake, but Chizoba knew in her heart that she was doing the right thing. The years went by, and Chizoba went to the university. The government paid for everything just like they promised. She got the best education anyone could ask for. After she finished school, Chizoba became one of the top engineers in all of Nigeria. She was really good at what she did. She got to travel to lots of different places around the world. She built things that made people's lives better. She even won awards for her work. And through it all, Mama Uju was right there with her. They went everywhere together, like a real team. But no matter where Chizoba went or what she did, she never forgot about Umwagu, her village. One day she decided it was time to go back. But she wasn't the same poor little girl anymore. Now she was a powerful, respected woman, and she had a plan. When she got to the village, everyone gathered around to welcome her. They were so happy to see her. Chizoba stood up in front of all of them and made an announcement. "I'm going to build a school right here in Umwagu," she said, her voice loud and clear. The people started whispering to each other. A school? In their village? Chizoba smiled. Yes, a school. But not just any school. This will be a school for every child in Umwagu, a place where no one will ever be forgotten or left behind. She looked around at all the faces, young and old. In this school, no little girl or boy will ever be called bad luck. Every single child will be cherished and given the chance to learn and grow. The whole village started cheering. They were so excited. This was a dream come true. Mama Uju was sitting in the front row, watching Chizoba with tears in her eyes. She was so proud of her daughter, the little girl she had always believed in. After the cheering died down, Chizoba and the villagers got to work. They laid the first stone of the school building that very day. It was a happy day, full of hope and promise. In the months and years that followed, Chizoba kept coming back to the village. She made sure the school was built just right. And when it was finally finished, it was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever seen. On the day of the big opening, the whole village celebrated. There was singing and dancing and so much joy. Chizoba stood in front of the new school with Mama Uju by her side. "This school belongs to all of us," Chizoba said. "It's a place where every child can learn and grow and dream big dreams, just like I did." Many years went by, and Mama Uju got very old. She had lived a long life, and it wasn't always easy, but she never regretted anything. She always said that everything she did was worth it, because it brought her to Chizoba. One night, when they were sitting in their nice new house, Mama Uju called Chizoba over to her bed. "Come here, my girl," she said, her voice soft and tired. Chizoba sat down beside her, taking her hand. Mama Uju looked at her with so much love in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you, my daughter," she whispered. "So very proud." Chizoba felt tears coming to her eyes. "I couldn't have done any of it without you, Mama. You gave me everything." Mama Uju smiled. It took a lot of effort, but she reached up and touched Chizoba's face with her shaky old hands. "You were always mine," she said. "From the moment I found you, you were my daughter, and you always will be." Chizoba held her hand tight, crying now. And then very quietly, Mama Uju closed her eyes. She took one last breath, and then she was gone. Chizoba cried for days and days after that. She felt like she had lost a part of herself. Mama Uju was the only real mother she had ever known. But even as she grieved, Chizoba made a promise to herself. She would make sure that no one ever forgot Mama Uju. She would keep her memory alive, always. As time passed, Chizoba became a very important person. She was one of the most powerful women in the whole country. She had everything anyone could want: money, success, respect. But one day, someone from her past showed up at her door. It was Obiageli, her birth mother, the woman who had left her so long ago. Obiageli looked very different now. All her fancy clothes and jewelry were gone. She seemed old and tired. "Chizoba, my daughter," Obiageli said, her voice shaking. "Look at you, you've done so well, I'm so proud." Chizoba didn't say anything. She just looked at this woman, the mother who had thrown her away. Obiageli started to cry. "I have nothing left," she said. "No one to turn to, but you. You have everything. Please, help me." She reached out her hands like she was waiting for Chizoba to hug her and say all was forgiven. But Chizoba didn't move. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "You made your choice a long time ago," she said to Obiageli. "You chose to leave me, and I've made my choice too." Obiageli's eyes got wide. "What do you mean? You won't help your own mother?" Chizoba looked at her for a long, long time. Then, very slowly, she shook her head. "No," she said quietly, "I won't." Obiageli started sobbing. "But I'm your mother!" she cried. "You can't turn me away!" Chizoba stood up tall. She looked Obiageli right in the eye. "You were never my mother," she said, her voice steady and strong. "Mama Uju was my mother. She loved me when you didn't. She's the one I owe everything to, not you." And with that, Chizoba turned around and walked away. She left Obiageli crying there, begging for another chance. But Chizoba didn't look back. She knew in her heart that she was doing the right thing. Mama Uju had taught her what real love was, and she would honor that love always, no matter what. Chizoba became famous all over the country. Everyone knew her name and her story. Some people said she was too hard on her birth parents. They thought she should have forgiven them. But others understood why Chizoba did what she did. It's not easy to trust someone who left you behind. It takes time to heal, and you have to be careful with your heart. Chizoba knew that better than anyone, and she wasn't going to let anyone hurt her again. Instead, she focused on helping others. The school she built in Umuagu became known all over Nigeria. Thousands of girls got to go to school there. They learned to read and write, to dream big and work hard, just like Chizoba did. And that was only the beginning. Chizoba used her money and her influence to do even more good. She built hospitals so people could get the care they needed. She made libraries so everyone could have books to read. She even made scholarships so poor kids could go to school for free. Chizoba spent her whole life making things better for others, especially for girls like her, girls who had been forgotten or left behind. She wanted them to know that they mattered, that they could do great things no matter what anyone said. And you know what? It worked. Because when people told Chizoba's story, they didn't talk about the family that abandoned her. They talked about the woman who never gave up, the girl who changed her whole world with the power of her mind and her heart. They said, "That Chizoba, she's unstoppable. Look at all the amazing things she's done." And it was true. Chizoba had taken all the pain and hardship of her childhood and turned it into something beautiful. She had become a hero, a legend, a woman who proved that you can do anything if you believe in yourself. And for all the kids out there who were struggling, who felt lost and alone, Chizoba's story was a light in the darkness. It was a reminder that they too could rise up, that they too could make their dreams come true. All they had to do was look at Chizoba and believe. Believe in themselves. Believe in the power of hard work and a kind heart. That's what Mama Uju had taught Chizoba all those years ago. And that's what Chizoba taught the world, every single day. So when people said her name, they said it with respect, with admiration, with love. Chizoba, the girl who overcame it all, the woman who changed everything, the unstoppable force of nature. And that, in the end, was her greatest legacy. Not the awards or the money or the power, but the countless lives she touched, the countless hearts she inspired. Chizoba's story was a story of hope, of resilience, of the unbreakable human spirit, and it would be told for generations to come, as a reminder to never give up, to never stop fighting for what's right. Because if a forgotten girl from a poor village could change the world, then anything, absolutely anything, was possible. Thank you so much for watching Chizoba's story. I hope her journey of resilience, love and success touched your heart as much as it did mine. If you enjoyed this tale, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We'll be sharing many more inspiring stories like this one, stories that remind us of the power of the human spirit and the importance of never giving up on our dreams. Your support means the world to us. With every like, comment and subscription, you become part of our storytelling family. You help us spread more tales of hope and courage and bring more light into the world. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for being here, for listening, for caring. We can't wait to share our next story with you. Until then, keep believing in yourself, keep chasing your dreams, and keep being unstoppable. Just like Chizoba. See you next time.